Welcome to Story Shows. I am your host, Emma's dad, and I have a story for you. It is The Empty Envelope by Ron Roy, and it's an A to Z Mysteries. And this was originally published in 1986. Now let's take a look at the town of Greenlawn, Connecticut. This is the town where the main characters of the story, the A to Z Mysteries crew, resides. You'll notice that the town is surrounded by a river, Indian River, and it surrounds it from three directions. Along Main Street, it starts with the Shangri-La Hotel, and you'll see Ellie's Diner, a favorite hangout of theirs. And just past Ellie's Diner is Greenlawn Elementary School, and that is where the children attend school. And you'll see their homes are just down that way on the northeast part of town. Stop back and check this map out anytime you would like. The Empty Envelope, Chapter 1. I got it! I got it! Josh yelled as he raced across Dink's backyard. He leapt into the air, missed the volleyball, and fell in a heap. Dink laughed. You got it all right. Way to go, Natey! Ruth Rose cried. She gave her 4-year-old brother, Nate, a high five. You just scored us another point. Nate blushed and smiled shyly at his big sister. Josh got up and grinned. Okay, I'm through fooling around. From now on, Josh and Dink will rule. Just then they heard a beep. It's Ruby with the mail, Ruth Rose said. Josh dropped the volleyball. I wonder if you'll get another blue envelope, he said to Dink. I can't wait to read what Mother has to say today. Dink ran to the front just as Ruby waved from her truck and drove away. He opened the mailbox and reached in. He pulled out 2 bills for his parents and a letter in a blue envelope for him. In the past week, Dink had received 4 other letters in blue envelopes. This was the 5th. Each envelope was addressed to D. Duncan, Greenlawn, Colorado, 06040, but the notes inside were to someone named Doris, from her mother. Dink returned to his backyard. He held the letter up. Another one, he said. Well, open it, Josh said. Dink ripped open the envelope and felt inside for the note. There's nothing in here, he said. It's empty. Ruth Rose peered into the envelope. Why would Mother send an empty envelope? She asked. Dink shrugged. Let's go in the house. I want to check out the other letters again. The kids trooped into Dink's kitchen. A covered plate sat on the counter. My mom made us some sandwiches, Dink said. Nate reached for the plate, but his sister stopped him. Look at those hands. Let's wash up at the sink, Nate. Dink pulled the other 4 envelopes from a drawer and laid them on the table side by side. They all looked the same. Can I get some juice? Josh opened the fridge before Dink could answer. Dink just nodded as he sat and stared at the envelopes. The return address on each was O. Bird, 10 Carroll Street, Brooklyn, New York, 11234. I don't know anyone in Brooklyn, he said, let alone someone named O-Bird. Dink dropped his eyes to the middle of one of the envelopes. Hey, look at this, he said suddenly. He pointed to the C.O. in his address. Isn't C.O. the abbreviation for Colorado? Josh and Ruth Rose each grabbed an envelope. Yeah, you're right, Josh said. Connecticut is C.T., not C.O. Dink looked at his friends. The zip code is right, But the state is wrong. Or maybe it's the state that's right and the zip code that's wrong, Ruth Rose suggested. What do you mean? Josh asked. Maybe these letters were supposed to go to some D. Duncan in Greenlawn, Colorado, Ruth Rose said. Whoever Olbird is just wrote down the wrong zip code. I know how to find out, Dink said. He walked over to the phone and dialed information. He asked the long-distance operator for Olbird's number. There isn't? He said. Okay, thanks anyway. Dink hung up. There's no Olbird listed in Brooklyn. Well, said Josh, grabbing a sandwich, you're the only D. Duncan in Greenlawn. In Greenlawn, Connecticut, Dink said. Josh sighed. Anyway, let's eat. They wolfed down the peanut butter and grape jam sandwiches. Read the notes again, Dink, Ruth Rose said after a few minutes. Maybe there's a clue about who they're really meant for. Dink opened the envelopes, pulled out the 4 notes, and laid them side by side. The first envelope, July 1. Dear Doris, I saw Jenny last week. She looks so pretty and sends her love. I broke my glasses, but I'm having them fixed. See you soon, Mother. July 3rd. Dear Doris, the kids came for Sunday lunch. They were so cute. Sally hid in the den and made the rest of us search for her. More later. Love, Mother. July 5th. Dear Doris, I thought of you on your birthday. A surprise is coming soon. Keep smiling. Love, Mother. July 7th. Dear Doris, little Kate had her 5th birthday party last week. I put some money in an envelope from both of us. She was thrilled. Hope all is well. Love, Mother. Josh picked up the 5th envelope. He turned it upside down and shook it. Maybe someone stole the last letter, he whispered. He made mysterious eyes at Dink. Maybe spies are watching your mail, he said in a creepy voice. Maybe they're alien kidnappers from Neptune and... Just then, the phone rang. Chapter 2. Dink answered the phone. Is this D. Duncan? A woman's voice asked. I'm Donald Duncan, Dink said, but my friends call me Dink. Well, Dink, the voice said, I'm Doris Duncan from Colorado. I think you may have some letters that belong to me. Dink covered the phone and turned to Josh and Ruth Rose. It's some woman from Colorado asking for the letters, he whispered excitedly. Hello? Are you still there? The woman asked. Don't hang up. Dink spoke into the phone again. I've got 5 blue envelopes this week. Well, those letters are mine. They're very important, Doris Duncan said. When can I get them back? Dink glanced across the kitchen. They're right here on the table, he told Doris Duncan. Do you want me to send them to you? No, the woman snapped. Don't send them anywhere. I'm at the Shangri-La Hotel right now. How do I find you? Well, I guess you could come to my house, Dink said. He gave her directions to 22 Woody Street and hung up. What was that all about? Ruth Rose asked. Dink sat at the table again. That was Doris Duncan. The letters are hers, and she's coming right over to get them. From Colorado? Josh said. No, she's at the Shangri-La. She should be here in a few minutes. She's in Connecticut? Ruth Rose said. That's weird. Dink nodded. Yeah, and another thing, she sounded mad, like I took the letters on purpose. This is so lame, Josh said, yawning. You got the letters by mistake and some woman is coming over to get them? He stood up and stretched. Let's go finish the game. Dink slipped the notes back inside their envelopes, then stood them between the salt and pepper shakers. Ruth Rose poked the envelopes. Don't you guys think it's weird that she came all the way to Connecticut just for some notes from her mom? Maybe Dink can ask her when she gets here, Josh said. Now, can we please play some volleyball? Ruth Rose stood up. What could be so important about those letters? She wondered out loud. 10 minutes later, Dink heard someone calling, You there, young man! Dink ran to the side yard and saw a tall woman walking up his sidewalk. He jogged out front to meet her. Hi, are you Mrs. Duncan? The woman towered over Dink. I'm Mrs. Duncan. Are you Dink? Dink had to bend his head backward to see the tall woman's face. She had black hair and dark, squinty eyes. She was clutching a purse in her large, strong-looking hand. Well, are you the boy I talked to or not? The woman demanded. Dink gulped. Yes, ma'am. I'll get the letters, he said. Thank you, the woman said. Suddenly she sounded almost nice. They're from my mother, Bessie Duncan. She died last month. Those were her last letters to me. Dink went inside to the kitchen. He walked over to the table to get the letters, but they were gone. Dink looked around the kitchen. The letters weren't on the counter, the fridge, or the stove. Dink looked on the floor under the table. He saw a few crumbs from lunch, but no blue envelopes. What's the matter? Ruth Rose said. She and Josh were peering through the back screen door. I can't find the letters, Dink told his friends. Didn't I leave them on the table after we ate lunch? Ruth Rose pushed open the door and came in. I think so. She looked behind the toaster, the coffee maker, and the microwave. Help us look, Josh, Dink said. That lady is waiting. The letters are from her mom, and she died last month. Josh stepped inside, and the kids searched the kitchen. The letters had vanished. Guess I'd better go tell her, Dink muttered, shaking his head. I know. I left them on the table. He walked through the living room and opened the front door. Doris Duncan was standing where he'd left her. Dink swallowed. I'm real sorry, but I can't find the letters. The woman glared down at him. What do you mean? She said. When I called you, you said you had them. Where are they? Dink felt his face turn red. I don't know, he mumbled. They were on the kitchen table, and now they're not. My friends even helped me look. The woman stared over Dink's shoulder. She looked as if she wanted to barge past him and search the house herself. I'll ask my mom to help when she gets home, Dink said. Can you come back later? Doris Duncan tapped her fingers on her purse. I'll be back at 6 o'clock sharp, she said. I'll expect my letters then, young man. Don't worry, we'll find them, Dink assured her. My mom can find anything. She's a real neat Nellie. The woman sniffed, then stomped down the sidewalk toward the street. Dink watched her go, then turned around and bumped into Josh. I'm telling you, your mom, you called her a neat Nellie, Josh said, grinning. It's not polite to listen to people's conversations, Joshua, Dink said. He headed back to the kitchen. Guys, look at this, Ruth Rose said. She was pointing at a small purple handprint on the kitchen table. I thought I wiped the table. Josh bent over and sniffed the purple print. It's grape jam. Ruth Rose grinned. I think I know who took the envelopes, she said. Chapter 3. The kids marched next door to Ruth Rose's house. They found Nate in the living room watching a video. His fingers and mouth were stained purple. Natey, did you take Dink's letters? Ruth Rose asked. Nate looked at his sister with big blue eyes. He shook his head. Nope. Ruth Rose glanced at Dink and Josh. She rolled her eyes. Okay, then who took them? We found your jammy fingerprints. Nate hid his hands under his t-shirt. Staggy did, he said softly. Dink knelt down next to Nate. Where did Staggy put the envelopes? He asked. Nate shrugged, watching 2 dancing dinosaurs on TV. Who the heck is Staggy? Josh asked. His favorite dinosaur, Ruth Rose said. She turned off the TV. Natey, Dink really needs his letters. Can you show us where Staggy put them? Nate let out a big sigh. He got up and walked into the kitchen. The kids followed. Nate pulled open the refrigerator door. A stuffed stegosaur sat on a shelf next to a bowl of strawberry jello. Staggy had 5 blue envelopes in his mouth. Josh laughed. Yo, Nate, don't you know dinosaurs hate the cold? Nate pulled Staggy off the shelf and shut the door. Staggy's playing mailman. It's hot outside, he said. Ruth Rose handed the envelopes to Dink. It's not nice to take things without asking, she told her brother. It's okay, Natey, Dink said, examining the envelopes for purple smudges. He wanted the letters to look perfect for Doris Duncan. Dink found a few splotches of grape jam and wiped them off on his pants. When he looked for more purple stains, he noticed the return address again. This is weird, he said. Dink showed the return address to Josh and Ruth Rose. Doris Duncan's mother's name is Bessie Duncan, so why are the letters from Old Bird? Maybe Old Bird mailed the notes for her after she died, Josh said. Dink laid the envelopes in a row on the kitchen table. He pulled out the notes and placed them next to their envelopes. But what about this? Dink said. The letters are all dated last week, but Doris Duncan told me her mom died last month. Mind if I get us all some milk? Josh asked. Go ahead, Ruth Rose said, picking up the empty envelope. And why would anyone send her own daughter an envelope with nothing in it? Dink nodded. It doesn't make any sense, he said, unless these letters aren't really from her mother. But why would Doris tell us a story like that? Ruth Rose wondered. Josh picked up one of the letters. He read it quickly. Then he carefully spilled a small puddle of milk on the writing. What are you doing? Dink yelled. Doris Duncan will kill me. Wait a sec. Josh smeared the milk around with his finger. I read in a spy comic that if you pour milk on invisible ink, you can read it, he said. Maybe there's a secret message. They all hunched over the letter. No hidden writing appeared, but now there was a wet, milky blotch over some of the words. Thanks a lot, Josh, Dink said. Wait till Doris Duncan sees this. Ruth Rose blotted the letter with a paper napkin. Don't worry, it'll dry, she said. She waved the letter in the air, then held it up to the sunny window. It's better, Dink said, giving Josh an or you'll be sorry look. Guys, look at this, Ruth Rose said. There are 2 pinholes in the paper. The holes go right through the letters, H and D. Josh grabbed another letter. He held it next to Ruth Rose's at the window. This one has a hole too, he said. There's a tiny one right through the letter J. Dink jumped up and looked at the pinholes. Then he stared at his friends. Maybe there really is a secret message, he said. Chapter 4. The kids examined the other two notes. They found pinholes through the letters O, F, and E. H, T, J, O, F, and E all have holes through them, Dink said, writing the letters on a pad. Maybe the letters spell a secret message. Ruth Rose said, let's try to make words out of them. She grabbed the pad. I get ho, jo, do, fo, and fed, she said after a minute. How about of, ed, o, and he? Dink suggested. Those words don't make any sense, Josh said. Maybe each letter stands for a word. You know, like scuba. Dink and Ruth Rose just stared at him. You know, scuba. S-C-U-B and A. The letters stand for self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. Dink grinned. Josh, how come you look so dumb, but you're really so smart? Josh grinned right back. How come you look so dumb, and you really are? Guys, stop fooling around, Ruth Rose said. Let's figure out what these letters mean. The kids spent 10 minutes trying to make a message out of the letters J, H, D, O, F, and E. I give up, Dink said finally. Wait a minute, Josh said. Maybe Mother's already shown us the secret words. He picked up one of the notes and peered at the pinholes. Look, he said, this hole's in the first E, in envelope. Maybe it's the word envelope. That's part of the code. Dink and Ruth Rose arranged the 4 notes by date. Then they looked at the words next to the pinholes. Dink wrote down 6 words: Jenny, hid, den, on, 5th, envelope. Ruth Rose started to read them out loud, then suddenly grinned. Listen, guys. Jenny hidden on 5th envelope. Awesome, Josh said, giving Ruth Rose a big grin. The other one that came today is the 5th envelope, Dink said, holding it up. But who or what is Jenny? The message says Jenny is on the envelope, Josh said, but all I see are the stamps. Don't forget the ink and glue, Dink said. What about looking for the letters J-E-N-N and Y in the addresses? Ruth Rose suggested. E-N-N and Y are there, Josh said, after a minute, but there's no J. That leaves the stamps, Dink said. The stamps were pictures of big yellow sunflowers. I don't see any Jenny there. Guys, look, Ruth Rose said. She grabbed the other envelopes. The first 4 envelopes have just 1 stamp each, but the one that came today has 3. You're right, Dink said. I wonder why. He rubbed his fingers across the 3 sunflower stamps. I feel something under there, he said. Dink held the envelope up to the window. There's something dark under those stamps, he said. I can see an outline. Chapter 5. I'm going to boil some water, Ruth Rose said. My grandfather used to collect stamps. He showed me how to steam 'em off envelopes. Ruth Rose ran water into the tea kettle and set the kettle on the burner. Then she turned on the stove. The kids sat and stared at it. Sure is taking a long time to boil, Dink muttered, brushing his fingertips over the sunflower stamps. Suddenly, steam began whistling out of the kettle spout. Dink handed Ruth Rose the empty envelope. Ruth Rose held the envelope so the stamps were right over the kettle spout. In a few seconds, moisture began gathering on the stamps. Then the stamps began to peel away from the envelope. "Cool," Josh said. "I feel like a spy." Ruth Rose shut off the stove. Using the tip of a toothpick, she removed the 3 sunflower stamps from the envelope. Hidden beneath the stamps, covered with cellophane, was a smaller stamp. It was blue. In the center of the stamp was a picture of an old-fashioned airplane. The plane was flying upside down. Dink removed the cellophane. "It's an old stamp," he said. Josh poked a finger at the stamp. "The dumb thing is printed wrong," he muttered. "What's the big deal about an upside-down airplane stamp?" And that is our midway point for The Empty Envelope by Ron Roy. We're going to leave you in suspense for parts 2. So be sure to join us again. To see part 2, we'll revisit the map of Greenlawn and we'll dive in to the second part and find out more about the upside down stamp. Thank you for spending some of your time here at Story Shows. I appreciate you. Peace be, harmony, and we are out.